Hey, I'm Chris Ruff, the professional prospector, and I hope you can hear me over the stream below. I'm here in Montana and I'm getting some gold. And I want to talk to you about where to find gold in the state of Montana. Now, you know, when people think of important gold prospects and placers, most of the time they think of places like California or Alaska or something like that. But the truth is, Montana has some really great placer areas and a whole bunch of little ones that are very poorly documented, like this one behind me. You see all that stacked rock? That all came out of this little stream because there's gold in it. And there's a lot of little places like this that aren't very well recorded and not on a lot of old maps. But I'm going to show you some maps and some interesting information about placer gold in Montana and where it's been produced and where you might go look for placer gold if you want to come here to Montana and take a try for yourself to find some gold here.
Montana has a rich history of mining for gold. In the 1860s, there were a number of great discoveries made, and miners were working mostly placer gold all over the state. This low-grade picture basically shows some hydraulic mining that was taking place near Helena back in the 1860s. Here's a map of the gold districts in Montana, the principal ones, the ones that have had more significant production. You can see that the bulk of the districts are concentrated in the southwest part of the state, although you can see there's a couple of districts in the central part and a few districts in the northwest part. But the main large producers, the best known districts, are really in the southwest part of Montana. So if you're interested in gold in Montana, the southwest part of the state is what you want to be looking for. Now, most of the gold from Montana is generally fine sized. This shows a very typical distribution of the gold. You can see a few little picker type nuggets here, but for the most part it's small dust and very small fragments of gold, although this kind of gold is still very recoverable. Now, there are some larger pieces, and here's a few little bit larger pieces. Most of these could easily be recovered with a metal detector, as long as they were fairly shallow. But Montana also produces some large nuggets. I mean, there are some of the districts that have produced quarter ounce, half ounce, and even bigger. This particular nugget weighs in at over 27 ounces. So there has been some coarse-sized gold come from Montana too. Now, perhaps the most famous, or one of the most famous districts in all of Montana is the Bannock District. And this is a map that shows where the placers are in relation to the town and shows some of the mines and the geology. And you can see that the placers are pretty extensive. And in fact, Bannock was the first district in the United States mined by bucket line dredges. But some of the higher areas couldn't be reached by a dredge, and so they're still there, and there's potential here for prospectors to get out there and find some gold. Bannock also produced some hard rock gold. This is a bit of vein material, and here's another sample, a little bit richer with some obvious gold on it from Bannock. Another famous district is the Alder Creek or Alder Gulch, Virginia City district. It was considered a river of gold. It was very rich, and there's both hard rock mines, as some of this shows, and then placer along Alder Gulch that the miners worked and got quite a bit of gold from. This is a geologic map showing some of the area and what the rocks are. The rock that's just marked as white here, and it's called P, and then it has a weird E kind of symbol for it, or PC. It's for Precambrian rocks. It's very old rocks, and these rocks have been intruded by other rocks, and that's what gives rise to some of the hard rock mines in this area. Another map showing some of the hard rock mines, and actually this relates to the ratio of gold and silver that each mine produced. But still, this was a very productive area and produced a lot of gold. Now here's a larger scale map, and you can see at the bottom is that Virginia City Alder Gulch, and I've gone ahead and marked in yellow a lot of little areas around here that have produced placer gold. You can see south of Virginia City there's a Kearsarge area that produced some placer. North of Alder Gulch there's a couple of smaller creeks that produced placer, and further up in the Fairview area, Wisconsin Creek, and over in the Norris area, you can see the Norris Revenue. There's a Washington Bar and the Norwegian area that produce placer gold. But all these areas, Garnet, the Garnet District around Pony, that produce some really nice gold out of these areas, both hard rock and placer. And one of the things that I recommend to prospectors exploring around some of these areas is to try the smaller gulches that don't seem to be as obvious or are adjoining to the well-known places, because it's in these smaller gulches that there may still be some gold to be found, and you want to take a look at that. So this is a good map that kind of shows you some of that area. Now as far as the Norris area, which is shown in the northeast part of this, here's a specimen of the kind of gold that some of the hard rock mines there produce. And you can see the wires in the iron oxides that are there. The iron oxides that are in this specimen, the rusty colored materials, that was once a mineral called pyrite or fool's gold sometimes, but you can see that it's rusted away to just rusty material that's left. But there was gold that was deposited in with that pyrite, and you can see the wires of that gold there. This would be very detectable with a metal detector, so some of the old hard rock mine dumps really would be a good target too. Now, speaking of hard rock mines, perhaps one of the most famous hard rock districts in all of the United States was the Butte District. There was many millions of dollars, but Butte is mostly famous for its copper production. But the truth is, there was a lot of gold that was produced, and some of the mines around Butte were as much gold mines as they were copper. Some of them were even principally gold mines and produced some very high-grade gold ore. Here is a specimen of gold ore from the Butte area, and it may not be as obvious to you when you look at it that it's a high-grade gold, but I'm going to point out with my cursor here, there's little spots of gold all through here in the upper part of this rock. All the little spots of yellow colored material are gold, and some of the silver gray is actually telluride, which is a rich gold mineral that it's basically gold and tellurium together to form a mineral. Here's another specimen from the Butte area that also has some nice bits of gold spread through it. You can see. This is another well-known placer area, the Garnet Fairview kind of area. This area was a big producer of placer gold and is worth looking at. But like I say, Montana has a lot of hard rock mines, and some of those hard rock mines produce specimens that have visible gold. Sort of like this, you can see the little bits of gold sticking out of the rusty area of the rock. And these kinds of specimens are great for testing old mine dumps with metal detectors, because a specimen like this would sound off loudly on your metal detector. Here's another example of a similar sort of thing, a little bit of material that has gold spread through it that would respond well on a metal detector. These are the kinds of things you're looking for in the mine dumps of some of those old hard rock mines. Now here's another little map that shows some of the areas of basically southwest and all the way up to the northern border with Canada. And in the southwest part of this map, you'll see the Marysville, York, Helena area, and that was a big producer of gold too, both placer and hard rock. Here's a picture of some of the hard rock quartz that comes from that area. And some of the hard rock mines would be, again, worth taking a look at with a metal detector. And this is some of the placer gold. As you can see, it's like a lot of Montana gold, sort of on the fine side. Now, one of the most famous gold producing areas of Montana was Confederate Gulch. And there were a lot of mines in this area, and a lot of the different gulches around Confederate Gulch were big producers, and they were mined hydraulically for years. And this is an old-timey photograph that still shows the remnants of Diamond City, which is the town that was established in Confederate Gulch for the gold miners. Here's another old-time shot of some of the areas that were mined hydraulically by the old-time miners. Now, I've seen gold that's been detected here with metal detectors. A friend of mine was metal detecting in some of this area and actually got a dirt clod that was filled with nuggets. I mean, it must have had a 1/4 ounce of gold, but all the nuggets in it were just, good solid pickers. But there was a whole bunch of them concentrated in one small piece, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. Now, it also produces fine gold in addition to chunkier nuggets. This is 1 pennyweight, or 5/100ths of a troy ounce, 1/20th of a troy ounce, from Horse Prairie Creek, which is one of the tributaries in the area around Confederate Gulch. Phillipsburg is another area in Montana that produced some really great gold, and there's a number of both hard rock and placer mines around Phillipsburg that are worth exploring. Here's another specimen of really rich ore from the Phillipsburg area. Because, again, like I say, this was a rich area that produced a lot of nice gold that would be very attractive to modern day prospectors. Now, a lot of the early day mining, the placer mining that was done in Montana, was done hydraulically. And you can see in this picture how they did that. They blasted high pressure water against the side of hills and literally washed those hills away into their sluice boxes. But as destructive as that type of mining was, there's nothing we can do to undo what was done 100 or 125 or even more years ago. But the areas that are left behind, like this, are actually very productive for metal detectors. There's very similar areas to this in California, and I've had some really great luck metal detecting in areas like this in California. And I'm sure in areas like this is White's Gulch in Montana, and this would be a good area, if you could get proper access to it, legal access, then it would be a good place to metal detect. One of the things too about the placer deposits of Montana is that they are, a fair number of them are reconcentrations of glacial gravels. Gold-bearing gravels that miners want to look for are natural concentrations of gold out of the gravel. And glaciers will come along and just stir everything up like a giant bulldozer, basically mixing up natural concentrations and stirring them around so that they're no longer any kind of a concentration. But the weathering and erosion that occurs afterwards can then take the glacial gravels and again reconcentrate them down. In this particular cutaway, this is from a mine in Montana. The level marked A is just the surface soil. The level marked B is some glacial gravel that has a little tiny bit of gold in it. But the level marked C was at one time the surface of the ground, and gold has been reconcentrated in that layer C. And then D down below is again glacial gravels that don't have much gold. But the miners were able to work the C pay streak and get some good gold out of it. So Montana is really a good place to find gold. If you live in Montana or you're near enough to Montana to try and explore around there, It's a great place to be finding gold, and there's lots of good mining districts, like I say, especially in the southwest part of the state. Now, there's actually in the northwest part of the state a designated area for people to pan that's can't be claimed. It's set aside by the Forest Service at Libby Creek, and you can find information about Libby Creek on the internet. It's way up in the north, not far from the Idaho border, and really isn't that far from Spokane, Washington. Here's a couple of little specimens from the Libby Creek mine area, and you can see that there's some nice gold there. And although most of the gold is fine and probably not suitable for metal detectors, there obviously is, looking at these specimens, some gold there that could be detected with a metal detector. So I wanted to just show you here some of the gold districts of Montana, and you can see, like I say, the southwest part of the state is really the epicenter of gold in the state. It's some of the most mountainous area, and that's the reason, because the mountain building and the geology that occurred there, that there's the most gold in this area. So if you're trying to consider where to find gold in Montana, well, this map is really what you need to know. So take a close look at it and reference it with some of your other materials and see what you think.
Now, I hope you enjoyed that segment on the different places where there's placer gold in Montana, because the truth is there really is a lot of gold here. And I want you guys to know that there's a lot of gold here. Now, if you want to become a better prospector and learn more about finding gold, well, I wrote a whole book about it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book about prospecting right now.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my book. I wanted to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained about finding gold and how to be successful. And so I spent years literally writing this book, Fistful of Gold. It's more than 350 pages long, which is why I say it's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know about finding your own gold. I've sold more than 8,000 copies, and I've got a lot of really great feedback on it. It just is the most complete book on the market. It has information about finding gold that literally is not available in any other book that you're going to find for prospectors, because I took technical stuff from geologists and other mineral scientists, and I've translated that into language that the average guy can understand. You don't need a PhD to go out and find gold, but the information that scientists have learned over recent decades can be of a lot of help to people. So it's in this book. If you're interested about finding gold, panning, sluicing, nugget detecting, dry washing, the geology of gold deposits and how they form, it's all in here. And like I say, it's more than 350 pages long. So if you'll just go to the description underneath this video, you can take a look. I've got a link in there to take you to Amazon, to the site where the book is sold. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Take a look at all the people who've commented on this and have really liked the book. It has a very, very high rating for a book. And also, I have a website, my own free website that you can take a look at. I've got all kinds of information on here about doing research and how to find gold, a lot of good information, stuff that basically couldn't fit into my book. And so I put it on this website, and I have a link also for that in the video description. So take a look in the description, and you can click on the link, and it'll take you to my website. And finally, if you like this presentation, I've got a lot more coming out. Here's 3.5 ounces of gold that I found a couple years back in one area. I've got a lot more of these videos coming on gold, gemstones, hard rock, placer, a lot of metal detecting. There'll be lots of metal detecting stuff. So if you really enjoyed this, click the subscribe button and then tick the notification bell off, and YouTube will let you know when I publish new stuff. And hit the like button as well. And please comment on these videos because I'm interested in what you have to say. And I promise to answer any questions you have. So if you are wondering about anything or think maybe I didn't cover something thoroughly enough in a video, then let me know and I'll be happy to try and help you out and give you whatever information you need. So thanks a lot and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again real soon.